past noon, so we'll get started. I'll call the meeting to order. Lexi, did you want to give a statement, please?
Yes. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Again, we're using GoToMeeting. Thanks for all dialing in. During the meeting, our plan is to have everybody muted, so please respect that. During the public comment time, we will be calling on people. There is a chat function in the top right of your computer screens and also your phones if you're logged in through there. All I ask is you use that function to list your name and the topic you would like to discuss, or if you do have any other comments you would like to make during the meeting. If you have questions as well, use that function and I can get you called on. During the public comment, I will also ask if for some reason anybody's not able to get to the chat function, I will ask later about if there's anybody else who would like to speak, and I'll have you chime in. Again, if you have questions, just let me know.
Thank you, Lexi. Jen, will you take roll call?
Commissioner Corbin?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Waldner?
Here.
Commissioner Thiel?
Here.
Mayor Denner?
Here. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I got a motion from Kelly and a second from Bob to adopt the agenda. Jen, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thiel?
Aye.
Mayor Denner?
Aye. Seeing nothing under appearances and acknowledgement, nothing under consent calendar or unfinished business, we'll move right down into new business. Number 1, do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 2020-09, limit the number of patrons inside casino, bars, restaurant following CDC guidelines?
I'll make the motion we adopt that.
I'll second it. Start the conversation.
Okay. Before we get going, I did have a statement that I wanted to address, and then I also had a couple questions, so I'll get the ball going here. I'd like to take this time to again address the ongoing COVID-19 situation in our state and in our city. As you know, Governor Noem has been firm in her stance in regarding to each city handling COVID-19 on their own. I have received numerous calls in regard to the COVID-19 and whether or not to close non-essential business down until this has resolved itself. I have put out a couple of statements from myself encouraging social distancing and following the CDC recommendations. I've had some complaints and some concerns from citizens that maybe we were not doing enough and that where we placed we're not following the guidelines. Therefore, I thought now would be a good time to clarify the event as they unfold. On March 16th, I made a statement in the City Commission meeting in regards to the COVID-19 and recommendations. It was posted in the local newspaper, city website, local radio station, and Facebook. I urge the public to follow the CDC guidelines, social distancing, and good hygiene. As mayor, I released a statement on March 26, 2020, and would follow the governors and the CDC recommendation on social distancing, and that we need to have 10 people or less in business setting with 6 feet apart each other. I wanted to allow the people in business to comply and monitor themselves while staying open. Unfortunately, I began to get reports and complaints that this was not happening everywhere. At this time, I asked Chief Police Meyer if he and his officers were seeing this, and he reported the guidelines were not being followed. Please know I have been trying to work with the city commissioners to come up to a general decision and or resolution on handling this. I reached out to them on March 25th, April 1st, and in emails with little response. Upon hearing the first case in Lake County on April 2nd, 2020, I reached out to the commissioners by phone. One commissioner felt that we didn't need a resolution at this time, felt we needed a softer touch, which I also agreed on. He felt that the mayor should be going to the establishments, talking one-to-one to people who were not in compliance. The only problem was that there was no resolution in place, so it left little that I could do. But I did go out and visit some of the local businesses. After visiting with one of the other commissioners, we talked and felt that it should be on the agenda, but to my surprise, there was no discussion or comments or suggestion. Finally, with the help of Chief Meyer going and talking to the commissioner himself, a resolution was formed. So now the police department will have the tools they need to enforce the recommendation of social distancing if this resolution goes through. I am disappointed that it took this long to get something put together. My plan is to continue to strive to work as a cohesive group. My hope is that we can remain a strong community and work together to get through this difficult time. I'd like to thank Chief Meyer in assisting with the solution that I hope will benefit all. Please continue to reach out to me anytime, and please feel free to contact me. Also, with the 2 new cases in Lake County, I believe we need to take this next step to keep all residents safe from the spread of COVID-19. The question I had, a couple of them were one for Mr. Jenks. My understanding, I read the resolution, my understanding, it said includes employees. My understanding that Sioux Falls, some of the Sioux Falls did not include the employees.
I do not know that. I do not
Okay.
have knowledge of that.
Okay.
That language was placed at the request of Chief Meyer,
Okay.
and that's why it's there. As for what other cities have done with employees, I guess I'm not prepared to answer that.
Okay. Thank you. And the other question I had pertains to, I know, and I'm just taking this as an example, like Sportsman's. They do have an outside deck to have people out there. Is that part of this resolution, or being it's outside, we cannot do anything about that?
Well, I think that you can regulate it, because I think that what could change, if you want to regulate the outdoors, we need to change the resolution to indicate allow for no more than 10 people on the premises, rather than say what it currently says, no more than 10 people inside. So if the city wants to take the step of also regulating the outdoors on the premises, we can make a slight change to this resolution.
That's all I had for questioning.
Marshall, I've been asked to have you recap what you said. I guess the audio cut out for a bit. Can you just recap what the resolution said, what your feelings were on it, I believe, is what they're asking for.
On my statement, or what?
Sounds like on the resolution itself. What's your position on the resolution is, Mayor?
My position on the resolution was, I think we need to take this next step further. I hope we don't, I hope our police department doesn't have to enforce it. I hope it will just make people more aware and abide by the CDC guidelines. I guess those were the only two questions I had. I'm okay with this resolution as it sits. Is there any other comments out there or questions from anybody else?
Could you read the resolution for those that have not read it yet?
The whole, okay. Resolution 2020-09, a resolution to limit the number of patrons inside casinos, bars, and restaurants following CDC guidelines. Whereas the city of Madison, South Dakota has the authority pursuant to SDCL 9-291 to pass the ordinance and resolution for the purpose of promoting the health and safety of the citizens of Madison, and whereas the city commission, being aware of Governor Noem executive orders and the CDC guidelines concerning the COVID-19 virus, that includes all casinos, bars, restaurants, either allowing for no more than 10 people inside to include employees or close to inside patrons, but allow for curbside service of food or off-sale alcohol if they have such a license. Now therefore be it resolved by the commission, by the City Commission of the City of Madison, South Dakota, that all casinos, bars, restaurants either allowed for no more than 10 people inside to include employees or close to inside patrons, but allow for curbside service of food or off-sale alcohol if they have such a license, effective immediately until May 20th, to be reevaluated if circumstances change. The penalty hereunder shall be a fine of $200 per violation or such amount levied by a court competent jurisdiction that pursuant to SDCL 9-19-13, this resolution is necessary for the immediate preservation of public peace, health, and safety and welfare of the city, and shall take effect immediately upon passage thereof.
This is Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, Kelly.
David, in your comment about an alteration, when you said 10, changing from in the bar to on the premise, which would include the outside space, I'm assuming, because that is their premise also, would it be, so in that scenario, keeping that in mind, we go to on the premise, are we saying 10 inside, no more than 10 inside, and no more than 10 outside?
No, if you change the language to on the premises, it will be 10 people on the legal boundaries of that business, including inside or outside.
Okay.
So it'll be 10
Okay,
maximum on the entire legal description of the property.
Very good. Thank you. Just need clarification.
So, Kelly, I'm just going to follow up with that. If we leave it as is and they have a patio, they can have 10 outside and 10 inside, and then, is that correct, David, or no?
No,
No.
I think that if we leave it as is, they can, quite frankly, have as many people as they want outside. And I've
Okay.
already instructed the police chief in some discussions that the PD, under this resolution as drafted, shouldn't concern itself with the outside. I mean, if they choose to have 10 or 20 or 30 outside, this resolution would not cover the outside portion, and I wouldn't want the PD trying to enforce or cite for whatever's going on outside. This would only deal with what's inside.
Okay.
So if the commission wants that changed, if the commission wants to deal with the outside, this resolution needs to be modified here today.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
We have a question from the audience. Tim K., can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Can you see the question in the chat function? You may need to read it on his behalf.
I'll just read that for you, Tim. It says, per violation, what constitutes a violation? Each excess person or each occurrence of too many people?
Each occurrence of too many people,
Which would be citable every 24 hours.
which is citable basically every 24 hours, correct. So it could basically be a per day violation. If on Monday there's 15 people and on Tuesday there's 12, that's two separate violations that are chargeable.
Hey, Marshall, I have a comment when you have time.
Yes. Do we have them? Mike, why don't you come up to this mic, please? Sorry, David.
That's
State your name.
Thanks, Marshall. This is Rob Graham. For those of you who don't know me, we do a lot of training for the restaurant business across the country. We've trained, 50,000 students last year, 2019. So I'm a little bit familiar with the restaurant business. I like this idea that the police should have some idea what they're supposed to enforce. I mean, if people call in, the police need to be able to tell them something and do something. But I think this one's a little harsh. It seems like we should, go with something like every other table, or limit it to 1/3 of your stated occupancy, or, 10 people for a restaurant. We're basically putting all our restaurants out of business, and, we don't want to do that. We don't have a lot of choices in Madison as is. So, seems like we could meet the same thing, the social distancing, by going with every other table, or some other limitation, or every other table and a limitation or something. But 10 people is, that's not enough to do a lunch crowd, and that's, when you make your money. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple more questions coming through as well.
Okay.
One question, does this include people outside for pickup orders or to-go orders?
No, it would not.
One other question, could a facility just pay the daily fine and then continue as usual? Will the police department remove persons from the premises?
Yeah.
Right now, what our plan of action would be, there would be a daily citation, but also understand that if continuous violations did occur, they would be cited on a daily basis, and it would also negatively impact their ability to renew that liquor license when it came time for renewal.
And I would have certain judicial powers that I could probably ultimately, if the citation was challenged, ask the court for some sort of closure order, but that's an extreme remedy, and I'm not sure the court would grant that. So the theoretical answer is, it's possible that someone could rack up several violations and citations and continue to operate. It's possible, at least for a period of time.
Hello, Sherry.
Hi, Sherry Eliason, owner at Second Street Diner. So I'm just a little of what Rob said. We seat, our posted seating is 120. I think that in Sioux Falls they did a percentage of posted occupancy. If we have a large square footage, if we could maintain, and we see that people are concerned about social distancing, And we rarely would have more than 10 people with our staff included. However, possibly at lunch time, we could have 12, even up to 15, but no one is anywhere near each other. It's a very big place. I have pictures if you want to see what 12 people looks like. So I just might say, I would like to follow the rules, and we're very concerned about it. And we've taken a lot of steps to spread people out, and people are really stepping up, and they are not coming, and they're taking out. And I mean, every week they're doing better. So I would just say that not every business is the same. So just to say straight 10, we can be socially distant and have a few more. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Chief Meyer, did you want to? I was just going to ask you if you wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to some changes to this. I understand that not every business is the exact same. We just need a set of guidelines to go by, because there are a select few businesses that are choosing not to take the steps that Sherry and her staff have done, and they need to, I think, for the safety of our community, be dealt with and handled. So I'm not opposed to making changes to this. What I am looking for myself and my department is a clear set of guidelines that can be enforced equally and evenly across the board. Whatever those numbers are, whatever they say, we will be happy with, but we just need some sort of clarification, and I think we need to do what we can to ensure we don't have a serious outbreak and our numbers go through the roof overnight.
Okay. Thank you. So can, David, on that note, can we make the changes and still proceed with this at this point in time?
Yes, you can. You can make changes right now. They can be read, and ultimately they can be voted on and be part of the final resolution. So changes can be made right now.
I guess.
Chief, this is Commissioner Corbin.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to access the capacity information for each business? So if we were to say 10% of your total capacity or something along those lines, are you able to figure that out in a timely fashion?
You know, I don't know how quickly we could gather that information. I don't know if that's something that Fire Chief Minert would have access to or not. Other than that, I think the only thing we would need to do is go off the word of the occupant of the building. The other thing that I would ask is whatever number you do come up with, that we include the stipulation that it includes the premises as a whole. That way we're not trying to count in versus out. If you're going to do that percentage, it would make our job a lot easier.
The commission
How would you factor in people waiting outside to pick up their food, say they're socially distancing?
That would, to me, that would not be a factor. If you have somebody that's standing outside waiting to get an order, I think that are properly distanced, we would want to combat is a large congregation of people outside the premises consuming or milling around. If you're there to get an order and go, that would not be an issue.
I have a few more questions coming through. Has anyone spoken directly with those businesses to avoid a blanket approach?
Yes, I've reached out to one. I went to 7 different bars on April 1st just to do my own check, and I'm pleased to report that we had no violators at that time. And I spoke to most of the bartenders, owners, or managers, and just said we need to comply with the CDC guidelines and to keep social distancing. That was April 1st. I haven't seen it for my own two eyes, but I have had people still say there are a few, and I want to repeat, a few that are still breaking these guidelines. That is why I'm trying to push this to give our chief of police the tools to take care of this.
Next question, if a facility has compliant number of patrons and they're all at one table, for instance, is that compliant?
This resolution does not discuss the distance that people need to keep from each other in these establishments. And I am not going to put my police department in a position where they are measuring people to try to determine how many feet they are from each other. This resolution will be hard enough to inherently enforce anyway. There is no magic pill that's going to make something like this easy. And as soon as we have to try to measure people in an establishment, it becomes a totally ineffective resolution. So it's my position and opinion to the commission today, make this a number. Don't make this a distance apart from each other in the establishment. People like Sherry are obviously already trying to do that, which is terrific, and we'd of course ask that. But I don't want the PD having to try to decide whether to cite or not because people are 4 feet or 6 feet or 8 feet from each other. That just doesn't work. So one possible compromise or middle ground here might be based on some of the comments. I did have a chance to look at the city of Sioux Falls while we were sitting here. They did do patrons. They did number of patrons. So it would be patrons plus staff. So our draft resolution says total people, including employees. Maybe some compromise language is 10 plus employees.
And that's where I was going to go next, David. Thank you. I want to keep this as simple for the police department. I hear Jeremiah. I know what you're going with the percentage of occupancy, but I want to keep it simple. I would suggest keeping it 10 inside and not including the employees.
So if we did what the mayor just said, we would have. Sorry, say that one more time, Mayor.
That they can have 10 patrons,
Okay.
Which doesn't include the employees.
All right, so what the PD would then have before it is there could be 10 patrons plus any employees, and there would be no jurisdiction, so to speak, by the PD to try to determine what was going on outside. Is that understood where the discussion stands now?
Yep.
Okay.
Are you good with that, Chief Meyer? Are you okay with it, I guess?
If that's the way you guys want to go, that's what we'll go with. My hope is once this is passed, we have compliance and we don't have to address this in other means. That is obviously our ultimate goal. We would stop in occasionally maybe and do a spot check, but ultimately our goal here would be not to have to address this any further than letting those businesses know what our resolution is. If that's the way you want to go, you're running into a little muddy water when you're dealing with inside and outside, but if that's the way the commission chooses to go, that's what we'll go with, and we'll enforce it as is. So
I do think the commission would have
I think this is Kelly. I think Marshall's suggestion is probably on muddying the waters a little bit, because if you walk up to a building and there's a lot of people sitting at the tables outside, they're not your concern. Your concern is inside the building, how many people are there, and minus the employees, how many patrons are there. Is that correct, Mayor?
Yes.
There is the,
Yeah.
I do believe that the city commission would have the option to also say something like 10 inside and 10 outside. I think that you would have that ability. I'm not advocating one way or another, and I don't know what the PD's position on something like that is. But if you wanted to try to continue to unmuddy, you could say 10 in, 10 out, plus employees. That would be an option.
Any feedback on that?
It's fine. Like I said, if we want to focus solely on the inside, then that's what we'll do. We won't worry about the outside. That's my only concern is, are we going to some point down the line get to a point where we have a very large number of people outside that are causing an issue? And if we run into that, maybe we can come back and address that in the future. Again, my hope is 100% compliance with the passage of this, and we don't run into those issues. So that is my only concern. But if we do start to see some of that, you may see me come back and maybe ask for an adjustment at a later date. But again, I hope we don't run into that.
And this is, look, resolutions are of a temporary character in nature. They can be modified, especially emergency resolutions. So if the chief is not advocating that we do much with the outside right now, I certainly don't care. I just want the clearest resolution we can get here. I really don't have an opinion, to be honest. So if we're inclined to go 10 inside plus employees and not address the outside, that's perfectly fine, but then I'm going to instruct my PD not to do counts or try to cite no matter what's going on outdoors.
Kelly, you brought up the outdoor. Are you looking at the 10 inside, 10 outside, excluding the employees?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Excuse me, Mayor.
Yep.
Say that. Ask me that question one more time.
To change to change the resolution.
10 inside minus, go ahead.
10 inside, 10 outside, and that also excludes the employees.
Yes.
I'm okay with that. I guess.
I would concur with that as well, Mr. Mayor. 10 outside seems okay as well, and we don't want to have huge congregations of people outside as well. That is certainly not the intent during this time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mike. If this turns into a street dance, then we have to revisit this immediately. But if it's there's 5 tables outside and there's 4 each people, or if there's 2 tables with 4 each and 1 table with 2, that's 10. Then I'm okay with that. It gives a little more latitude for the business. But at the same time, gives us a little bit more sense of holding people accountable and everyone being responsible towards this effort. So,
Lexi has a couple more questions.
I've got a few more.
Okay.
One is just saying, I would ask the commissioners to think of the livelihood that they are taking away from these business owners. These business and families are struggling financially at a very minimum. I would suggest 20 as a number of patrons, not including employees, and May 4th as an end date, with May 4th as being the city commission meeting date.
So let me just address that just a little bit. Right now, we have as a effective date until May 20. I don't know if, we had to have a date for the proposed resolution. Certainly if the commission wants to adjust that upward or downward, that would be in your discretion. And the point that the commenter is making is a valid one. It's very clear from reading our statutes, our state statutes, and then some Supreme Court cases that interpret these statutes, is that our resolutions and ordinances on this topic need to be reasonable. Now, unfortunately, lawyers make a living on the word reasonable, because what's reasonable to one person isn't always reasonable to another, okay? So, but the Supreme Court has said that these sorts of statutes need to be reasonable. And I don't believe that shutting a business down entirely is reasonable. However, in this day and age, in this time, it may not be reasonable to let a business operate completely the same. So I think that the common theme here needs to be striking a reasonable balance for a temporary period of time.
With the understanding, David, and correct me if I'm wrong, this May 20 is not a hard deadline. If circumstances change, this can be amended, adjusted, revoked prior to that May 20th date, correct?
It could be revoked prior to May 20, and it could be extended prior to May 20. But if neither of those actions are taken, this resolution will expire on May 20 and no longer be in any effect. It's either going to have to be extended or terminated prior to May 20. If it's not, this all goes away on May 20.
I have a question. For trial and error, shall we just try it for 2 weeks and see, or you guys want to stay with the May 20th? That's up to you.
It makes no difference to me whatsoever. Understand that it will be back on your table in 2 weeks. If you choose to do that, and that is fine with me. I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. The May 20th, there are some places that are doing it every 2 weeks. The question is do you want to address it every 2 weeks? Do you leave it out there for an extended period of time, knowing that if circumstances change, that you can come back and make those changes as needed?
What I'm saying is after 2 weeks, everything's going good, then we can keep it on to May 20th or longer, depending on what the state does. But it's up to you two, what you guys and the rest of the commission and the mayor, what you want. I'm just throwing it out there, because I don't want to put anybody in hardship of their business. I do not want to do that. But we got guidelines that we have to go by.
Again, I'm neither here nor there on that. It's whether or not you guys want to address this again in 2 weeks, and 2 weeks after that, and 2 weeks after that. That's a commission decision, in my opinion. Knowing that we can amend this or do anything we want to it at any point in time in the future if we need to.
And look, the commenter's date may be a valid one. Maybe there's an in-between here. It says May 20th. Bob, I don't know if I love having to deal with it every 2 weeks. I think all of the data indicates that in 2 weeks we're going to be in the exact same position on this virus. Maybe May 4th. Maybe May 4th is a compromise, decent date. The city can always extend it. If the city feels that it's in the health and safety and welfare to extend it, it can. But if you want to go May 4th, you're certainly not going to get any objection from me. But that's a commission decision.
I have no.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
This is Commissioner Corbin. I favor May 4th. And then it happens to fall on a meeting day too. I believe the 20th is a Wednesday.
Yeah, I was just looking at that myself.
I also agree with you, Jeremiah. I have no problem changing it to the 4th.
Can I read what I think we have as a revised resolution?
Okay.
And then can people speak up and tell me if I'm wrong? But what I think the revised resolution is going to say is the following: that all casinos, bars, and restaurants either allow for no more than 10 people inside and 10 people outside, excluding employees, or closed to inside patrons, but allow for curbside service of food or off-sale alcohol if they have such license, effective immediately until May 4, 2020, to be reevaluated if circumstances change. That's the paragraph that I understand and where we're at.
That I am comfortable with that, Mr. Jenks. How about the rest of you?
Sounds good.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that. I'm glad. Let's get it on a regular meeting date. So, and if we want to extend it, we can. If the overall numbers haven't changed, we can take a look then. But
the commission wants to make a motion, the finance office and my office will coordinate on cleaning up the final resolution for signature.
This is Brad. Do you want to add the word on the premises to that, what you just read, David?
Let me think about that. I think I've got a little editorial discretion there on the final. That's certainly the intent, and if I don't think it's clear enough, I can add that. I might need to see it after I write it.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick question.
Yep.
Do we need to include other businesses as well, or just the three that we have, types of businesses that we have listed there? Is that sufficient? I'm just asking the question.
I guess at this point in time, yes, we have manufacturers out there that have quite a few employees. And of course, I'm saying these are non-essential businesses, not saying they're not important. The casinos, bars, and restaurants are important to the city of Madison.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I guess I was just looking at some of the city of Sioux Falls, and they're talking movie theaters, and I know our theater has really stepped up and done well. Live performance centers, gyms, fitness centers, bowling alley, arcade, indoor shopping centers. We don't have food courts, coffee houses. I just want to make sure that in a week from now, we're not coming back to do another resolution to include perhaps other areas where the public may congregate. And I'm just making sure we're in sync with everything and trying to get it right in one shot.
Well, we may not be able to do that. I'll tell you, with the way the world's changing daily right now, we very well may have to do another resolution in a week or two that I can't even anticipate right now. So I think it's a good goal, but I think we need to be prepared to do this in another week or two. I guess with respect to Commissioner Waldner's comments about, do you want to include other businesses? If you want to, you certainly can do that now, or you can do it later, but you need to define for us what other businesses should be included in this resolution. If you have other businesses in mind, they would certainly need to be added to this resolution.
I think since we moved it up a significant chunk to the 4th, I think we can, if we have to make adjustments at that point, we've moved it up within a closer target range, and we could do it then.
Is that
when we review it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would agree with you.
Yep.
If you need to.
Yep. I would agree with you there, Kelly. I just want to make sure, and actually I'd like to thank some of these other businesses who have really stepped up, and I understand businesses and understand what the whole country, the whole nation, the whole world's going through right now. And, these businesses have really stepped up. Hopefully there'll be some programs where they can get some support, some help with that. They can talk with Eric over at LAIC, USDA, different things. I think more will come available, but, you have to applaud those who have really stepped up, been innovative, changed the way that they're doing things. And so I applaud them in a big way.
Just with that, Mike, just to reinforce what you're saying previously, this is Kelly. I had thought we would probably come in initially and have this even longer than this, probably till June 1st or something, till the end of May. So I think we're prudent and wise now, as I think about it, to move this to the 4th, take it up sooner, and maybe just a pass. We'll leave it the way it is. But there are 2 or 3 options for us. But I think I'd like to see us go ahead and vote on this with the changes that David had posed to us.
Okay, do we have to make amendment to the motion or just?
I believe that the motion can read to approve this resolution as amended and read by David Jenks, and then I will draft the same.
Okay. So we had a motion by Bob and a motion by Jeremiah, wasn't it?
Second.
Second by Jeremiah.
Yes.
Jen, will you take a roll call vote?
I think it's time. Yeah.
Yep. We're going to proceed on taking this vote. So Jen, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thel?
Aye.
Mayor Denner?
Aye. Public comment?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a moot point. The resolution's been voted
It's
on.
more of a clarification, I guess, for
All right.
it, I guess.
I guess it's up to you if you want to allow it read before you adjourn.
Go ahead. Yes, I will.
The clarification they're wondering is if they have 10 people inside eating and 10 people inside waiting for their food to go orders. Are they supposed to tell people that waiting for their food, they have to leave until their food is done?
I would say that yes, those people should probably be waiting outside or in their cars.
Yeah, and let's be clear. I'm not going to advocate that the PD cite in a situation like that.
Right.
The PD may be there, or the PD may come in and say, hey, can you 10 wait outside? But this isn't going to be
It's going to be
extreme enforcement.
Right, it's going to be a learning experience for everybody
Yes.
as we proceed forward. Again, my goal is hopefully we don't have to address this at all. But if people do have questions, feel free to call the police department, and we will answer those questions to the best of our ability.
Does that take care of it? Okay. Announcements? I did have one, and I did have a lengthy statement, so I'll keep this short. Just want to throw out a suggestion. I know this is a holiday weekend. Everybody needs to go to a grocery store. We want you to go get your groceries. But if you guys could limit the time you're in there or limit the time you go, maybe make one trip to the grocery store and just to keep the social distancing down. And also maybe leave the children at home just so everybody is protected. And that's just a suggestion. But other than that, that's all I have. Is there any other announcements? Seeing no exec session, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So approved.
So moved.
Kelly, Bob beat you in there. Will you second that?
All right, second. Yeah.
All right, sorry. I'll get you next time. Okay, I got a motion and a second by Bob and Kelly to adjourn. All in favor signify by aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you for all coming and have a great Easter weekend.